Happy Rising. I am doing one quick recording this morning before having to go over and play some piano for some people eating breakfast and lunch. I want to wish everybody an amazing aloha on this beautiful day. It's a little cold, but it feels great at the same time because we're alive, right? So I'm reading section 8 here in the Urantia book. This is a very large book that my father gave me as I was going out to college, and it left a huge impact on my thinking because even to this day, I still go back to it and find myself um, needing to look at whole sections and be like, oh yeah, that's what it said about marriage, or this is, let's see. So number 8 is the dangers of self-gratification. It's the very last section here on marriage and family life. And it says that the great threat against family life is the menacing rising tide of self gratification, the modern pleasure mania. The prime incentive to marriage used to be economic, and the sex attraction was secondary. Marriage founded on self maintenance led to self perpetuation and concomitantly provided one of the most desirable forms of self gratification. It is the only institution of human society which embraces all three of the great incentives for living. Originally, property was the basic institution of self maintenance, while marriage functioned as the unique institution of self perpetuation. Although food satisfaction, play, and humor, and along with periodic sex indulgence, were means of self gratification, it remains a fact that the evolving mores have failed to build any distinct institution of self gratification. And it is due to this failure to evolve specialized techniques of pleasurable enjoyment that all human institutions are so completely shot through with this pleasure pursuit. Property accumulation is becoming an instrument for augmenting all forms of self gratification, while marriage is often viewed only as a means of pleasure. And this overindulgence, this widely spread pleasure mania, now constitutes the greatest threat that has ever been leveled at the society, evolutionary institution of family life, and the home. The violet race introduced a new and only imperfectly realized characteristic into the experience of humankind: the play instinct coupled with the sense of humor. It was there in measure in the Sangiks and the Andonites, but the Andamic strain elevated this primitive propensity. I am sorry, I don't know why I'm having weird. Oh, what's up, Nathan? And hello, my sister Tamika. Happy Rising. It's a beautiful, what is it, Wednesday? Yeah, I think it's like Wednesday. All right, so we're reading the last section here for paper 84, Marriage and the Family Life. And they're going back into the past for speaking of how the different races contributed to marriage and such. It says that the playful instinct coupled with the sense of humor was something that was characteristic of the violet race. It was there in measure in the Sangiks and the Andonites, but the Adamic strain elevated this primitive propensity into the potential of pleasure, a new and glorified form of self-gratification. The basic type of self-gratification, aside from appeasing hunger, is sex gratification. And this form of sensual pleasure was enormously heightened by the blending of the Sangiks and the Andites. There is a real danger in the combination of restlessness, curiosity, adventure, and pleasure abandoned characteristic of the post-Andite races. The hunger of the soul cannot be satisfied with physical pleasures. The love of home and children is not augmented by the unwise pursuit of pleasure. Though you exhaust the resources of art, color, sound, rhythm, music, and adornment of person, you cannot hope thereby to elevate the soul or to nourish the spirit. Vanity and fashion cannot minister to home building and child culture. Pride and rivalry are powerless to enhance the survival qualities of succeeding generations. A powerful pronouncement there. Let me go ahead and just paste this. So, DJ Justice. So, here's the paragraph that I just read. You can read it for yourself. Happy Rising. I'm looking forward to this day. I get to make some music for people, and my friend Melinda, she printed some of my old art. Like here's a picture of a man meditating, and she didn't have any color, so it worked out perfectly because now I can leave it here at the library for people to color on. And here's a woman meditating. She's like breathing in deep. Breathe in that ether. So we live during some amazing times because now we have a chance to share the stuff that we've been learning. I found this book a long time ago when I was 24. My dad gave me the book actually as I was going to college, and on the airplane I was reading it, and I was sitting next to two Christian people who were also trying to comprehend what the book was saying, but a lot of the information was just going like right over our heads. Today though, and you know, I'm actually feeling and understanding this book a lot more though. So, advancing celestial beings all enjoy rest and ministry of the reversion directors. All efforts to obtain wholesome diversion and to engage in uplifting play are sound. Refreshing sleep, rest, recreation, and all pastimes which prevent the boredom of monotony are worthwhile. Competitive games, storytelling, and even the taste of good food may serve as forms of self gratification. When you use salt to savor food, pause to consider that for almost a million years, man could only obtain salt only by dipping his food in ashes. So let man enjoy himself. Let the human race find pleasure in 1,001 ways. Let evolutionary mankind explore all forms of legitimate self gratification, the fruits of the long upward biologic struggle. Man has well earned some of his present day joys and pleasures. If they succeed in destroying property, which has become the institution of self maintenance. And self gratifications have indeed cost a fatal price if they bring about the collapse of marriage, the decadence of family life, and the destruction of the home, man's supreme evolutionary acquirement and civilization's only hope of survival. So that's the end of paper 84 there, marriage and family life. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead to the next section here. I want to find what is the next thing that we should read here. Wow, let's see, we have shamanism, medicine men, and priests. I think this one would be interesting for some of my friends here. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead to paper 90. Here's a link to it. Also going to have to paste this into YouTube here. There we go. All right. So paper 90 of the Urantia book dwells on shamanism, medicine men, and priests. They give a good history here of all these things, and I hope you're ready to hear some of this. The evolution of religious observations progressed from placation, avoidance, exorcism, coercion, conciliation, and propitiation to sacrifice, atonement, and redemption. The technique of religious ritual passed from the forms of the primitive cult through fetishes to magic and miracles. And as ritual became more complex in response to man's increasingly complex concept of the supermaterial realms, it was inevitably dominated by medicine men, shamans, and priests. In the advancing concepts of primitive man, the spirit world was eventually regarded as being unresponsive to the ordinary mortal. Only the exceptional among humans could catch the ears of the gods, and only the extraordinary man or woman would be heard by the spirits. Religion thus enters upon a new phase, a stage wherein it gradually becomes second handed, and always does a medicine man, a shaman, or a priest intervene between the religious and the object of worship. And today, most Urantia systems of organized religious belief are passing through this level of evolutionary development. Evolutionary religion is born of a simple and all powerful fear, the fear which surges through the human mind when confronted with the unknown, the inexplicable, and the incomprehensible. Religion eventually achieves a profoundly simple realization of an all powerful love, the love which sweeps irresistibly through the human soul when awakened to the conception of the limitless affection of the Universal Father for the sons of the universe. But in between the beginning and the consummation of religious evolution, there intervenes the long ages of the shamans, who presume to stand between man and God as intermediaries, interpreters, and intercessors. Section 1: The First Shamans, the Medicine Men. The shaman was the ranking medicine man, the ceremonial fetish man, and the focused personality for all the practices of evolutionary religion. In many groups, the shaman outranked the war chief, marking the beginnings of the church domination of the state. The shaman sometimes functioned as a priest and even as a priest king. Some of the later tribes had both the earlier shaman medicine men, the seers, and the later appearing shaman priests. And in many cases, the offices of shaman became hereditary. Since in olden times, anything abnormal was ascribed to spirit possession, any striking mental or physical abnormality constituted qualification for being a medicine man. Many of these men were epileptic and many of the women hysteric. And these two types accounted for a good deal of ancient inspiration as well as spirit and devil possession. Quite a few of these earliest of priests were of a class which has since been dominated uh, paranoid. Hmm. Oh, that they have paranoia. Okay. So while they may have practiced deception in minor matters, the great majority of the shamans believed in the fact of their spirit possession. Women who were able to throw themselves into a trance or cataleptic fit became powerful shamanesses. Later, such women became prophets and spirit mediums. Their cataleptic trances usually involved alleged communications with the ghosts of the dead. Many female shamans were also professional dancers. But not all shamans were self deceived. Many were shrewd and able tricksters. As the profession developed, a novice was required to serve an apprenticeship of 10 years of hardship and self denial to qualify as a medicine man. The shamans developed a professional mode of dress and affected a mysterious conduct. They frequently employed drugs to induce certain physical states, which would impress and then mystify the tribesmen. Sleight of hand feats were regarded as supernatural by the common folk, and ventriloquism was first used by shrewd priests, meaning to throw your voice to another spot or something like that, tricking the ears of other people. So many of the olden shamans unwittingly stumbled onto hypnotism. Others induced auto-hypnosis by prolonged staring at their navels.
Whoa, it's a spiral for sure.
It just keeps going in. Oh, you didn't see that. While many resorted to these tricks and deceptions, their reputation as a class, after all, stood on an apparent achievement. When a shaman failed in his undertakings, if he could not advance a plausible alibi, he was either demoted or killed. Thus, the honest shamans early perished. Only the shrewd actors survived. It was shamanism that took the exclusive direction of tribal affairs out of the hands of the old and strong and launched into the hands of the shrewd, the clever, and the far-sighted. Section number 2, Shamanistic Practices. Hey, I hope you all having a beautiful morning. I'm here in Ohio, enjoying my hometown library studio. Can you believe that they built this for everybody? It's so modern. It's beautiful. Abby Wright and Katie Jane. Hey, it's good to see y'all joining my live. Katie Jane, I hope I could see you again someday in the Maui. We had a lot of fun out there. All right, so section number 2, Shamanistic Practices. I'm thinking now, like, as I'm saying hello to certain people as they enter into my live feed on YouTube, it has no record of who joins my live, so it's kind of weird for me to just say hello to people as they join in. But hey, modern times. So, spirit conjuring was a very precise and highly complicated procedure, comparable to present day church rituals conducted in an ancient tongue. The human race very early sought for superhuman help, for revelation, and men believed that the shaman actually received such revelations. While the shamans utilized the great power of suggestion in their work, it was almost invariably negative suggestion. Only in very recent times has the technique of positive suggestion been employed. In the early development of their profession, the shamans began to specialize in such vocations as rainmaking, disease healing, and crime detecting. To heal diseases was not, however, the chief function of a shaman medicine man or woman. It was rather to know and to control the hazards of living. Ancient black art, both religious and secular, was called white art when practiced by either priests, seers, shamans, or medicine men. The practitioners of the black art were called sorcerers, magicians, wizards, witches, enchanters, necromancers, conjurers, and soothsayers. As times passed, all such purported contact with the supernatural was classified either as witchcraft or shamancraft. Witchcraft embraces the magic performed by earlier, irregular, and unrecognized spirits. Shamancraft had to do with miracles performed by regular spirits and recognized gods of the tribe. In later times, the witch became associated with the devil, and thus was the stage set for the many comparatively recent exhibitions of religious intolerance. Witchcraft was a religion with many primitive tribes. The shamans were great believers in the mission of chants, as revelatory of the will of the spirits. They frequently cast lots to arrive at decisions. Modern survivals of this proclivity for casting lots are illustrated not only in the many games of chance, but also in the well-known counting out rhymes. Once, the person counted out must die, but now he is only it in some childish game. That which was serious business to primitive man has survived as a diversion of the modern child. The medicine man put great trust in signs and omens, such as When you hear the sound of a rustling in the tops of the mulberry trees, then shall you bestir yourself. And very early in the history of the race, the shamans turned their attention to the stars. Primitive astrology was a worldwide belief and practice. Dream interpreting also became widespread. All this was soon followed by the appearance of those temperamental shamanesses who professed to be able to communicate with the spirits of the dead. Though of ancient origin, the rainmakers, or weather shamans, have persisted right on down through the ages. A severe drought meant death to the early agriculturists. Weather control was the object of much ancient magic. Civilized man still makes the weather the common topic of conversation. The olden peoples all believe in the power of the shaman as a rainmaker, but it was customary to kill him when he failed, unless he could offer a plausible excuse to account for the failure. Again and again did the Caesars banish the astrologers, but they invariably returned because of the popular belief in their powers. They could not be driven out, and even in the 16th century after Christ, the directors of Occidental church and state were the patrons of astrology. Thousands of supposedly intelligent people still believe that one may be born under the domination of a lucky or unlucky star, and that the juxtaposition of the heavenly bodies determines the outcome of various terrestrial adventures. And fortune tellers are still patronized by the they're still utilized by the credulous. Oh, I read that wrong. Fortune tellers are still patronized by the credulous. Wow, I can see how that's like a tricky sentence there. Because to be a patron sometimes means to pay for services. So I was reading that as that somebody is paying for the service of the fortune teller. But no, it's saying that those who are credulous or skeptical, and so they will criticize fortune tellers. All right. Anyway, I'm going to move on. The Greeks believed in the efficacy of oracular advice, or the oracles. The Chinese used magic as protection against demons. Shamanism flourished in India, and it still openly persists in Central Asia. It is an only recently abandoned practice throughout much of the world, though. Ever and anon, true prophets and teachers arose to denounce and expose shamanism. Even the vanishing red man had such a prophet within the past 100 years. The Shani uh, Tinskawatawa, who predicted the eclipse of the sun in 1806 and denounced the vices of the white man. Many true teachers have appeared among the various tribes and races all through the long ages of evolutionary history, and they will ever continue to appear to challenge the shamans or priests of any age who oppose general education and attempt to thwart scientific progress. In many ways, and by devious methods, the old shamans established their reputation as voices of God and custodians of providence. They sprinkled the newborn with water and conferred names upon them. They circumcised the males, and they presided over all burial ceremonies, and made due announcement of the safe arrival of the dead in the spirit land. The shamanic priests and medicine men often became very wealthy through the accretion of their various fees, which were ostensibly offerings to the spirits. Not infrequently, a shaman would accumulate practically all the material wealth of his tribe. And upon the death of a wealthy man, it was customary to divide his property equally with the shaman and some public enterprise or charity. This practice still obtains in some parts of Tibet, where one half of the male population belongs to this class of non producers. The shamans dressed well and usually had a number of wives. They were the original aristocracy, being exempt from all. Yeah, I have a lot of trouble with that word. Let me just go ahead and paste this. Okay, so they were part of the aristocratic hierarchy, being exempt from all tribal restrictions. They were very often of low grade mind and morals. They suppressed their rivals by denominating them as witches or sorcerers, and very frequently rose to such positions of influence and power that they were able to dominate the chiefs or kings. Primitive man regarded the shaman as a necessary evil. He feared him, but did not love him. Early man respected knowledge. He honored and rewarded wisdom. The shamans were mostly frauds, but the veneration for shamanism well illustrates the premium put upon wisdom and the evolution of the races. Section 3: The Shamanic Theory of Disease and Death. Hello, Joanna Harmony. Since ancient man regarded himself and his material environment as being directly responsive to the whims of the ghosts and the fancies of the spirits, it is not strange that his religion should have been so exclusively concerned with material affairs. Modern man attacks his material problems directly. He recognizes that matter is responsive to the intelligent manipulation of mind. Primitive man likewise desired to modify and even to control the life and energies of the physical domains. And since his limited comprehension of the cosmos led him to the belief that ghosts, spirits, and gods were personally and immediately concerned with the detailed control of life and matter, he logically directed his efforts to winning the favor and support of these superhuman agencies. Viewed in this light, much of the inexplicable and irrational in the ancient cults is understandable. The ceremonies of the cult were primitive man's attempt to control the material world in which he found himself, and many of his efforts were directed to the end of prolonging life and ensuring health. Since all diseases and death itself were originally regarded as spirit phenomena, it was inevitable that the shamans, while functioning as medicine men and priests, should also have labored as doctors and surgeons. The primitive mind may be handicapped by lack of facts, but it is for all that logical. Okay, I think they wrote that kind of wrong. But oh well. When thoughtful men observe death and disease, they set about to determine the causes of these visitations. And in accordance with their understanding, the shamans and the scientists have propounded the following theories of affliction. 1. Ghost and direct spirit influences. The earliest hypothesis advanced in explanation of disease and death was that spirits caused disease by enticing the soul out of the body. If it failed to return, death ensued. The ancients so feared the malevolent action of disease producing ghosts that ailing individuals would often be deserted without even food or water, regardless of the erroneous basis for these beliefs. They did effectively isolate afflicted individuals and to prevent the spread of contagious diseases. Number 2, violence and obvious causes. The causes for some accidents and deaths were so easy to identify that they were early removed from the category of ghost action. Fatalities and wounds attendant upon war, animal combat, and other readily identifiable agencies were considered as natural occurrences. but it was long believed that the spirits were still responsible for delayed healing or for the infection of wounds of even natural causation. If no observable natural agent could be discovered, then the spirit ghosts were still held responsible for the disease and deaths. Today in Africa and elsewhere may still be found primitive peoples who kill someone every time a non-violent death occurs. Their medicine men indicate the guilty parties, and if a mother dies in childbirth, then the child is immediately strangled. A life for a life. Oh, that's kind of sad, isn't it? Because we don't do that here in America. Section number 3, magic. The influence of enemies. Much sickness was thought to be caused by bewitchment, the action of the evil eye, and the magic pointing bow. At one time, it was really dangerous to point a finger at anyone. It is still regarded as ill mannered to point. In cases of obscure disease and death, the ancients would hold a formal inquest. They would dissect the body and settle upon some finding as the cause of death. Otherwise, the death would be laid to witchcraft, thus necessitating the execution of the witch responsible therefor. These ancient conquerors' inquests saved many a supposed witch's life. Among some, it was believed that a tribesman could die as a result of his own witchcraft, in which event no one was accused. Oh, he did it to himself. A hook. And then number 4, sin, or punishment for taboo violation. In comparatively recent times, it has been believed that sickness is a punishment for sin, personal or racial. Among peoples traversing this level of evolution, the prevailing theory is that one cannot be afflicted unless one has violated a taboo. To regard sickness and suffering as arrows of the Almighty within them is typical of such beliefs. The Chinese and Mesopotamians long regarded disease as a result of the action of evil demons, although the Chaldeans also looked upon the stars as the cause of suffering. This theory of disease as a consequence of divine wrath is still prevalent among many reputedly civilized groups of Urantians, or Earthlings, on our tiny planet. And then number 5, natural causation. Mankind has been very slow to learn the material secrets of the interrelationships of cause and effect in the physical domains of energy, matter, and life. The ancient Greeks, having preserved the traditions of Adamson's teachings, were among the first to recognize that all disease is a result of natural causes. Slowly and certainly, the unfolding of a scientific era is destroying man's age-old theories of sickness and death. Fever was one of the first human ailments to be removed from the category of supernatural disorders, and progressively this era of science has broken the fetters of ignorance, which so long imprisoned the human mind. An understanding of old age and contagion is gradually obliterating man's fear of ghosts, spirits, and gods as the personal perpetrators of human misery and mortal suffering. Evolution unerringly achieves its end. It imbues man with that superstitious fear for the unknown and the dread of the unseen, which is the scaffoldings for the God concept. And having witnessed the birth of an advanced comprehension of deity, and through the coordinate action of revelation, this same technique of evolution then unerringly sets in motion those forces of thought which will inexorably, I don't know how to say that word, obliterate the scaffolding which has served its purpose. All right. Let's see, is this the last section here? Number 4. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this reading here because there's a new. I want to go ahead and switch to a different book here. I want to see if I can find a Harry Potter book for y'all. Peace and blessings, everyone. Yosef Shepherd signing out.